Welcome to Critchel Alt Society, and welcome to another deep dive. This is where we take a stack of sources you've shared, pull out the really key insights, and basically give you the shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on a topic. Today, we're tackling something that, honestly, affects pretty much everyone using technology, whether you're building it or just, scrolling through your phone. The big question is, can privacy itself be a product? Is it a real competitive advantage, a genuine moat? Or is it mostly just, clever marketing talk, a buzzword that sounds good? I mean, think back just a little while ago. The online world felt like it was full of free stuff, free search, free social media, free apps everywhere. But as we've all kind of learned, sometimes the hard way, that freedom wasn't really free. It came with this invisible but pretty significant price tag, or data. We saw the rise of what people started calling surveillance capitalism. Basically a system where companies watch everything we do online, sometimes even offline.
They collect huge amounts of data on our behavior.
Exactly. Our clicks, our searches, where we go. And they use that data to predict what we'll do next, maybe even nudge us in certain directions, turning our digital lives into, a commodity for advertisers mostly.
Yeah, it became the dominant business model for a huge chunk of the internet.
But things are definitely shifting now, wouldn't you say? Consumers are getting smarter, asking tougher questions.
Absolutely. There's a growing awareness. People are asking, okay, what exactly happens to my data when I click agree?
Right. Who's actually using it? What are they doing with it? And fundamentally, can I trust this platform? It feels like a big change, and frankly, probably long overdue.
It really is.
And we're seeing the big players react. I mean, look at Apple. They've built entire ad campaigns around privacy, sometimes pretty punchy ones, too.
Making it central to their brand image.
Yeah. And then you have DuckDuckGo basically building its whole identity on being the private search engine, a direct challenge to the data giants.
Their core value proposition.
Even messaging apps, right, like Signal and WhatsApp are constantly, maybe quietly, battling over who's really more private.
That's a constant point of comparison for users.
So what does all this actually mean? For companies trying to compete, and for us just trying to keep our digital lives, private, is privacy a real sustainable advantage, that moat we talked about? Or is it just a good marketing angle for right now? Let's try and unpack that. So building on that awareness, companies are now actively packaging privacy almost like a feature you buy. It's not buried in the terms anymore. It's a selling point.
Exactly. It's moved from the fine print to the billboard, so to speak.
We see it really clearly with Apple's whole walled garden approach. They market it with that slogan, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. On one level, sure, it positions privacy as a feature of this safer digital space, but doesn't it also, maybe more strategically, build a perception of trust that's deeper than just features?
Oh, absolutely. You've nailed a key point there. It starts as a technical choice, right? A design philosophy to control their ecosystem tightly. But if they stick with it, enforce it consistently over time, that commitment does become part of their reputation. It helps build that trust mode. We'll dig into more.
Okay.
And it's not just Apple. Think about the Brave browser. Its whole selling point is blocking ads and trackers by default. That's its core differentiator.
Right.
Or services like ProtonMail and Proton VPN. Their entire brand, their customer loyalty is built on that explicit promise. We never sell your data. It's front and center.
These are really clear examples of privacy as a feature.
They are. And what's interesting is how they use it for differentiation. If the big players are seen as, surveillance heavy, or their data practices are murky, a challenger can come in and say very clearly, we're different. We protect you. It's a powerful counter narrative for users who are getting worried.
Okay, so privacy as a feature sounds great, very compelling, but what's the catch? Because in tech, features can usually be copied, right? Is it really a sustainable advantage if your competitor can just add the same privacy settings next quarter?
That's precisely the weakness, the Achilles heel, of any advantage based purely on features. And it's a really important distinction to make here. So yes, technically, a competitor can implement, say, end-to-end encryption, or add a no tracking mode to their browser. That's doable.
Okay.
But copying a deep commitment to privacy, especially if it goes against your existing business model that relies on data, that's much, much harder. It can be incredibly expensive, even strategically dangerous.
So it's about the business model alignment.
Exactly. Think about it. A company whose whole empire is built on targeted advertising revenue. For them to truly commit to something like Brave's ad-blocking default, it could be suicidal for their main income stream.
Right, they'd be gutting their own business.
Precisely. So while the technical feature might look easy to copy on the surface, the underlying business model and the genuine commitment that makes that feature credible long-term, that's way harder to duplicate. Sometimes impossible without a massive, painful pivot.
And competitors will copy the easy stuff.
Oh, absolutely. They watch what works,
Ah.
they can adopt similar controls, maybe even make them seem stronger, and suddenly your unique selling point isn't so unique anymore.
Hmm.
Everyone starts shouting the same privacy message. And if your only advantage was that one feature, well, it gets diluted fast. It becomes much harder to stand out.
That makes a lot of sense. The internal cost, the strategic cost of copying can be huge.
Mhm.
Okay, so if features are maybe not the strongest defense because they can be copied, at least technically, what's the next level? What if privacy isn't just a setting you toggle, but something much deeper, more ingrained, like a real trust moat that actually offers better protection?
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, a true durable moat often isn't just about the tech itself or the specific features you list. It's fundamentally about your reputation. It's built on consistency. When a company doesn't just say it protects data, but actually shows it time and time again by avoiding abuse, by being transparent, that credibility starts to build up. It compounds.
Like interest in a bank account.
Kinda, yeah. And that earned trust becomes this incredibly powerful, almost intangible competitive advantage. It goes way beyond just ticking a feature box.
Can you give some examples of companies that have really tried to build that kind of trust?
Sure. Signal is often brought up here. Its code is open source,
Hmm.
meaning anyone can look at it.
No secrets?
Right. It's backed by a nonprofit, so there's no obvious profit motive to suddenly start selling user data.
Hmm.
And they have community audits. All these things work together to build this deep trust. Users feel they can verify the claims. Or look at Apple again. Yes, the features matter, but also the heavily policed App Store, the default privacy settings. These aren't just one-offs. They represent ongoing choices, visible commitments that build a track record over years, even when it causes friction, say, with developers or other tech giants.
And just to clarify, why is that combination like open source and nonprofit, why is that so powerful for building that particular kind of trust? What does it signal that maybe even a well-intentioned for-profit company struggles to convey?
That's a great question. It really gets to the heart of perceived versus actual incentives, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For any for-profit company, even one doing all the right things with privacy features, there's always that nagging question in the back of a user's mind. Could the profit motive eventually win out? Down the line, will shareholder pressure force them to compromise?
Right, the what ifs.
Exactly. With a model like Signal's open source, nonprofit, the entire structure is designed to minimize that potential conflict of interest. The code's out there, so hiding shady data collection is much harder.
Mm.
The nonprofit status means they aren't chasing quarterly earnings or looking for new ways to monetize users to please investors. That fundamental difference in how they're set up, it translates directly into a higher degree of baseline trust because users don't have to constantly second-guess the underlying agenda.
Okay, so this trust moat sounds incredibly strong then. Almost unbreachable if you build it right, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't trust in tech notoriously fickle? Doesn't it feel incredibly fragile? Like you could spend years building it and then one slip up, one scandal, and poof, it's gone. It seems like walking a tightrope.
You're absolutely right to point out the fragility. It's a classic double-edged sword. It's incredibly powerful when you have it, but it can crumble remarkably quickly.
Yeah.
This kind of deep-seated trust, this reputation, it isn't easily copied. You can't just buy it with a Super Bowl ad or a coincident a press release. It's earned slowly, painstakingly, over years of consistent, transparent actions, a real demonstrated commitment.
Yeah.
But one major data breach, one scandal where users feel betrayed, maybe even just a perception that you've misused data, and that entire moat can just collapse almost overnight.
We've seen that happen, haven't we?
Oh, definitely. Think about Facebook's attempt at a privacy pivot after the whole Cambridge Analytica disaster.
I remember that.
They tried hard to shift the narrative, introduce new privacy controls, talked a lot about change. But for a huge number of users, that trust was already gone, eroded. The public perception just didn't buy it. The damage was done. And regaining that specific kind of trust proved incredibly difficult, maybe impossible for many.
So years to build, moments to destroy. That's a tough moat to maintain.
It requires constant vigilance and genuine commitment.
Okay, so far we've talked about what companies choose to do, offer privacy as a feature, or try to build this deeper trust moat. But there's another huge force here, isn't there? Something external that doesn't just suggest privacy, but increasingly demands it. I'm talking about rules and regulations.
Absolutely. That's the third major piece of the puzzle. And it's fascinating how policies like GDPR in Europe or CCPA in California have fundamentally changed the landscape for almost everyone doing business online.
How so?
Well, they didn't just recommend better privacy practices. They basically forced companies to adapt.
Hmm.
They reframed privacy not as an optional feature or a nice to have, but as a fundamental baseline right for individuals.
So setting a new minimum standard.
Exactly. These regulations essentially raise the bar for data handling across the board. Privacy became a legal mandate, not just a way to differentiate yourself. The conversation shifted from, should we offer this, to how do we comply with these laws?
That must have had a big impact on businesses, especially startups.
For sure. It created this dual impact. On the one hand, compliance can be tough. It means investing in legal advice, changing technical systems, doing regular audits. It's a significant operational lift.
Right.
But on the other hand, companies that design their products with privacy baked in from the very beginning, they actually found these policy shifts could work in their favor because they were already doing what the law now required. It was proactive versus reactive. They anticipated the direction things were heading and built for it instead of scrambling to retrofit compliance onto an old system. Embracing privacy by design often turns out cheaper and less disruptive in the long run.
Can you give an example of how this regulatory push actually created new business opportunities? It sounds a bit counterintuitive, more rules leading to more business.
Oh, definitely. We're seeing whole new categories of businesses popping up specifically because of these regulations.
Mm.
Think about startups like Crisp. They focus on AI for content moderation. Why is that important now?
Because platforms are under pressure to manage content while respecting privacy.
Precisely. As platforms face more regulatory heat about content safety and user privacy, companies like Crisp offer tools to help them walk that tightrope. Or look at Big ID. They're all about enterprise data, privacy, and security management. Their entire business exists because large companies now have to know where their sensitive data is, manage it, and protect it according to these complex rules. Big ID sells the tools and expertise to turn that compliance burden into a managed service. They're capitalizing on the new regulatory floor.
That's fascinating. So in some cases, privacy isn't the moat itself. It's more like the floor, yeah, the minimum standard everyone has to meet just to operate legally. And the real competitive edge then comes from how companies go beyond that basic compliance, how they build on that floor to offer something genuinely better or more trustworthy. It's like the difference between just following the speed limit and actually having a faster car.
That's a good analogy. Compliance is table stakes. Differentiation happens above that.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and be brutally honest. Sometimes when a company tops a big game about privacy, it's really just, well, branding theater. Right. It looks good, sounds good, but maybe isn't entirely real.
Indeed. And what's really interesting, or maybe concerning, is how perception can drift so far from the underlying reality, sometimes very intentionally.
Like what?
Well, take WhatsApp and Signal again. Both use strong end-to-end encryption. Technically, that's a solid privacy feature. Only sender and receiver can read the messages.
Okay.
But WhatsApp is owned by Meta, and because of Meta's reputation and business model across Facebook, Instagram, etc., many users have a much weaker perception of WhatsApp's privacy, regardless of the encryption.
Right, the association taints it.
Exactly. People wonder, okay, the messages are encrypted, but what other data are they collecting? How integrated is it really with the rest of Meta's data machine? That doubt lingers.
What's another example?
Oh, the VPN market is notorious for this. You see countless YouTube ads, right, flooded with promises of complete anonymity, ironclad privacy, catchy slogans about hiding everything you do.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yet, time and time again, investigations find that many of these very VPN services are actually logging user activity themselves, directly contradicting their marketing. And sometimes they even sell that logged data.
Wow, so it's literally the opposite of what they promise.
It highlights this huge potential gap between the marketing promise and the actual business practice. It's a classic case of saying one thing and doing another, and it's why consumers are becoming, rightly, more skeptical. It's pure branding theater in those cases.
This really brings up a critical question then for you listening, whether you're building something new or just deciding what apps to use. Are you, or is the company you're looking at, genuinely building privacy into the core, the DNA of the product? Is it fundamental? Or is it just being used as a handy tagline, a superficial differentiator?
That really is the core question.
Yeah.
And consumers are getting better at spotting the difference. They're looking past the slogans.
Oh, what are they looking for?
Things like transparency reports, where companies publish details about government data requests or their own data handling policies, independent, open audits of their code or practices, verifiable, consistent commitments over time. These are becoming much more important signals of genuine privacy commitment than just, a slick marketing campaign. People want proof, not just promises. They want to see actions that match the words.
Okay, so looking ahead then, what does all this mean for the future? It feels like this dynamic privacy as a moat versus privacy as marketing isn't static. What are the big forces shaping where this goes next?
That's right. It's constantly evolving. I think there are three major forces that will really determine whether privacy continues to be a strong competitive moat or fades into just background noise.
What's the first one?
First is consumer expectations, and not just awareness, but action. Will people demand privacy so strongly that they actually switch products, even if it means giving up some convenience or leaving platforms they're used to?
So voting with their feet, essentially.
Exactly. We've seen awareness rise, but the real test is collective action. If companies don't feel a real financial penalty for weak privacy practices, if users complain but don't leave, then fundamental change might be slow. It's that classic tension between convenience and conviction.
Okay, consumer demand. What's number two?
Second is policy pressure. Will laws like GDPR and CCPA continue to get stronger or spread globally, raising that baseline standard so high that privacy eventually just stops being a differentiator?
Because everyone has to do it anyway.
Precisely. If every single company, big or small, is legally required to meet incredibly strict privacy standards worldwide, then claiming privacy as your unique selling point doesn't really work anymore. It just becomes a cost of doing business, like having basic security. We're already seeing this trend, and more regulation seems likely.
Makes sense. And the third force?
The third one is tech evolution. And this is where things could get really interesting, potentially disruptive. Will we see new technological paradigms emerge that fundamentally change the game?
Like what kind of paradigms?
Things like decentralized systems, maybe based on blockchain or similar tech, where your data isn't held by one company but distributed across a network, potentially giving you more control. Or advances in cryptography, like zero-knowledge proofs.
Zero-knowledge proofs. What are those?
Basically, they're ways to mathematically prove that something is true without revealing the underlying data itself. Imagine proving you're over 18 without showing your actual birth date.
Wow. Okay.
These kinds of technologies could potentially reset the whole privacy debate by building privacy into the very architecture of how data is handled online. Moving beyond just relying on trust or regulation, it could bake it in from the ground up.
It's a fascinating thought. If privacy becomes as standard as expected as, I don't know, seatbelts in a car, it's just a non-negotiable baseline everyone has, then maybe the competitive battleground shifts entirely to user experience or unique features or some other kind of value.
It absolutely could.
But on the flip side, if companies keep messing up, keep having breaches, keep failing to protect user data, maybe those brands that built the real trust moat, the ones seen as genuine privacy champions, maybe they become incredibly dominant, the safe harbors in a risky digital world.
That's the other possibility. If trust continues to be broken, the value of being a trusted provider goes way up. The future really hinges on how these three forces, consumer demand, policy, and technology, interact and evolve.
So let's circle all the way back to where we started. Is privacy a competitive moat, or is it just marketing? What's the verdict?
Well, like most interesting questions, the truth is probably it's both. Or rather, it can be both.
How so?
It often starts as a marketing message, a way to stand out, to differentiate, especially if competitors are seen as lagging on privacy. That's the initial hook. But it only really becomes a true, defensible, competitive moat when that marketing message is backed up consistently by genuine long-term trust, by verifiable transparency, and by near-flawless execution in actually protecting user data.
So the marketing gets you noticed, but the reality keeps you competitive.
Exactly. Without that deep commitment, without the proof behind the promise, it just remains a tagline. It's fragile and easily dismissed once users see behind the curtain.
So what are the takeaways here for everyone listening, for the different people involved?
Well, for founders, for people building things, the message seems clear. Think about privacy from day zero. Don't treat it as an add-on or a compliance checkbox. Build it into the core architecture, the fundamental design of your product. Make it part of your company's values from the start.
And for policymakers?
For them, it's about continuing to create smart, effective rules, those guardrails that genuinely protect people's rights and level the playing field, but hopefully without completely stifling the innovation that new technologies can bring. It's a balancing act.
Right. And finally, for you listening, whether you're a creator or just a user of technology.
For you, it really comes down to being diligent, making conscious choices about the tools and platforms you use. Look for the ones that don't just talk about privacy, but actually demonstrate it. The ones whose values genuinely seem to align with yours. Your choices signal demand.
That leads to a final thought to leave you with. As you go about your digital life, maybe consider what responsibility you feel you have in shaping that demand for real privacy. And how good are you really at telling the true privacy champions, apart from companies just putting on some convincing marketing theater? Your choices, aggregated with everyone else's, genuinely do shape the future market. Until next time, stay curious and maybe try to stay a little more private.